We're live. Hello, my little fox kids, and welcome back to more of our life beginnings and always. For those that don't know me, hi, my name is Susan, and I am a Sakura Arctic Fox, or an Arctic Fox who lives in a Sakura Grove. And of course, joining me, as always, is my lovely boyfriend. Say hello.
Breathe through and the truth goes into. Okay. Hey guys.
Here, I'm gonna turn you up just a hair.
Yeah, sure thing. Let me just lower them up a bit. There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Alright, so, last we left off, load, we are right here. We have gone through the first 3 parts and we did the prologue for step 2. So now we're going to be continuing with said game. We're going to be heading into the next next moments. We got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more. We're probably not going to do all 7 this stream. We'll see if maybe 4 will do. And we'll see about maybe doing 4 tonight, and if we're feeling okay, so... Let's go with dinner. Sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in your living room, your home phone pressed to your ear. Cope was on the other end. It had been shaping up to be an ordinary day like any other, until Cope had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted.
So, I was just wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight?
The question came out strangely, almost like he'd rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Her eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. Yeah, I'll go.
That's, It was, huh? Oh.
It seemed that Cove still had more to say and you just interrupted him. Oops. Well, maybe let's try that again. He kept listening. Cove, confused, his next words sounded rehearsed too and tinged with nervousness.
My mom and dad, they really want you to be here. If your parents don't have a problem with it, they asked me to ask.
He took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If he really wanted to, you could go to Cove's instead. Cove spoke up again, breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before.
So, I want you to be there. Can you, come over, I mean?
I'll have to ask my mom and get back to you.
Okay, tell me when you can.
You sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for dinner today that serious? He spoke to you a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then he hung up. And that was that, for now anyway. He called Ma right afterward and she picked up on the third ring. It wasn't a long conversation. When you asked to go to the Holden house for dinner, she was more than happy to give permission for it. No problems there. Ma wasn't the one to complain about you spending time with Cove. Cove got a quick call from you afterwards, so he knew for sure that you would attend dinner. Then you said your goodbyes and went on with the afternoon. Soon enough, the sun dipped out over the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, well, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. You made the small journey across the street. You knocked a couple times on the heavy door to their condo. As you waited for an answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest there while both of Cove's parents were there. It was exciting. You had thought today was going to be boring, but it turned out to be much more interesting. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened soon enough. Cove's mom, Kira, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you.
Come on.
Hey, Susan. Welcome. Please, come on in. Oh.
What's up?
Ash likes pink. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Grove. Hope you enjoy the Sakura.
Hey.
She opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over. I know it was kind of last second. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Of course. Just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that.
Hey, Susan! Welcome to our humble abode.
You jerked your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen, with his back turned and a large spoon in hand.
Hope you're hungry, because I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff. Oh god, the Eldritch demons are back!
True to his word, he heard something sizzling on the stove. He closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy and savory. With Mr. Holden busy and Cobb nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kira. She gave you a weary smile. He sure is. While I've been barred from the cooking the entire time I'm staying here. Can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly, then spoke from over his shoulder.
You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already.
Ash, this is, step 2. We're on step 2 right now. Thank you for first time chatting, by the way. Much appreciated. He, him pronouns. Okay, noted.
Gotcha.
Good thing I got the little bot and I have the little thing, finger face thing enabled where it shows if you registered your pronouns, you can actually see them, so it helps.
Excellent.
She yelled back, amusement obvious on her face and in her tone. People still cook when they're on vacation. Everyone's gotta eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who gotta go out for every meal or hire a private chef.
Sorry.
Well, in this house, you're a VIP.
Kira smiled and shook her head quietly, then she turned to face you once more.
Well,
Sorry about that, Susan. Here I was trying to strike up a conversation with you, and Cliff just had to butt in.
I didn't butt in.
Ash, it's okay. I've actually played this game through once, so I kind of know what happens, but thank you, though. My boyfriend has been playing the game off to the side, so they are trying to avoid any spoilers, but that's why I'm playing this together with them, so... Did you say your line?
Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
think Discord's being weird again.
No, I was distracted with talking, so...
Yeah, no problem.
She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disproving her point with that. Kira leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay, he likes to be included, but since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Yep, no worries, Ash. Her next question continued to be in a hushed tone just to be safe.
so?
So, how are you doing? I'm doing good. That's what I like to hear. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. You checked to see Cobb emerge from the hall a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. His cheeks tinted pink at the sight of you standing in his living room, and his hand came out to rub his arm almost bashfully.
Susan, you made it. Thanks for coming.
Cole's voice was unnaturally loud, as if though you wouldn't be able to hear him from where you were, only a few feet away. Hi, Cole. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
He didn't sound convincing at all. You narrowed your eyes suspiciously, but didn't call him out on it. If you could talk to him alone tonight, maybe you'd ask him what was going on then. It was when he glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrowed eyes.
So, are we having dinner now?
Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. Oh, no more Eldritch!
Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room.
As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you.
You coming?
The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased at the asked, and nodded in the affirmative. Affirmation? Cole fully turned and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two!
We'll call you when food's ready to go.
With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. This is the first time you were invited to see Cove's room. Cove got the door open first, opening it and stepping inside. You joined him. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold into his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. You glanced down. Sand was clustered around the entrance. You even spotted smaller amounts of it dusting around the rest of the room's floor. Though you had anticipated, you weren't surprised at the sight. Of course, the Beach Boy Cove Holden would get his room all sandy.
So this is my room.
Cove was a bit shy as he said so, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt using one hand and vaguely gesturing to the space with the other.
There's stuff you can sit on if you want.
He looked over at the desk chair as an option, and when he turned back, Cole was already sitting on the edge of his large bed. It's nice. Cole's chest puffed out as he sat up straighter and smiled.
Thanks. Dad helped me put stuff up, but I chose what to have and where.
That's cool. He sat next to Cove on his bed. As soon as she sat next to him, Cove grew tense, his back went stiff, and he ducked his head away. He tried to hide a trembling smile.
Oh my god.
He said it under his breath, as if he didn't want you to hear. You obviously did, and easily, since you were right beside him. He smiled comfortably at him. He raised his eyebrows. He both kept noticing the others even more. Others' every move. You're such a sweet guy, Cove.
What?
Oh, it's okay.
Clearly he hadn't expected the compliment. Somehow his flesh grew worse, spreading all the way down his neck. He fumbled for words.
I'm not that...
He gripped the blanket underneath him and searched for something more to say.
Did you see my fish? I've got some in a tank right there.
Cove threw both his hands in front of him to direct your eyes forward to his pets. He was trying to pretty poorly to change the topic, that much was clear. He decided to show him mercy and allowed it. He started to watch the bright fish swim. There were a bunch of them, floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish?
I guess.
My dad bought them for me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now.
Wow, that's a long time. He peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. He must take good care of them. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names?
I don't name them. Well, not really.
He lifted an eyebrow at that. He continued the explanation sheepishly.
I mean...
Mostly, I just call them things based on what they look like. Gourd for a small one, tangerine for a really orange one, that sort of thing. I've had a lot of fish, and I'm not that good at coming up with names.
He found that relatable. You didn't have any pets, but you always had trouble naming your stuffed animals or whatever else. It was such a hard choice.
Oh, a couple of them have other types of names.
He pointed to a small orange-ish redfish. It was minding its own business away from the others.
My dad named her Dreamcatcher, and that other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one.
Hope smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish?
It's nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
He then turned to face you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face.
Do you want to name one?
Can I? His smile grew at you a little at your interest.
Of course, sure. There's a few who don't have names right now. The newer one. You can pick what you want to name.
He pointed to the recent acquisition out to you. The first one was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around the others. The second one was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots which almost resembled freckles. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with... Which one should we go with?
Technically your playthrough, so go ahead.
Oh, I just want to hear your opinion. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with with any of the three.
I'm going for the medium fish.
That's good.
Cove nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide a suitable name. You watched the fish closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Name it after me.
Yeah.
Cove laughed unreservedly at your choice. It was affectionate rather than insulting.
What? You can't name it after yourself.
Why not?
Because I'm not going to call my fish that.
Well, you said still said I could pick it. Cove shook his head with a bent smile.
I'll call them Junior then. You can still call them Susan.
It seemed like a good enough compromise, so you agreed. Cove nodded, satisfied.
Alright. It's a season.
With that, his attention moved from the hue to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. He smiled proudly at Susan as it swam through the tendrils of the plants, disappearing and reappearing soon after. He noticed then that Cove was sitting closer to you than he was before. He must have scooted over at some point during the conversation. This close, your shoulders were almost brushing against each other. Your heartbeat picked up a little at the realization. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house, not even fish. The corners of Cove's lips turned down at that.
That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess of you. You just gotta take care of their tank and feed them and they'll be okay.
Right? My mom's can be strict over the weirdest things sometimes. They trust Elizabeth, to go around the neighborhood alone, but they won't let us have a pet? It doesn't make sense.
Maybe when you're older they'll let you?
I don't know. They seem pretty against it. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without any warning, earning you a brief confused look from Cove. One time, Elizabeth, came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. She only came down for food, and then she ran back upstairs straight after. It was kind of weird. My mom didn't think much of it at first thought. But then that night, Mom went into her room to say goodnight and started screaming. Mom and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had this huge lizard in her arms. Cove's eyebrows rose at that, and then he leaned forward in interest.
Really?
A lizard? Where did that come from?
Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got the answer, so she brought it home. She hid the lizard in her room for most of the day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Mom were not happy. They worried about putting it out during the night, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. You laughed thinking back to that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn. When she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face.
Can't even imagine what said before.
He gave serious thought to his statement before you told him. There are ups and downs. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth barely feels like hanging out with me. Cole pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while.
Cool.
That's interesting. I think your family is cool.
He didn't have much else to say, though while on the topic of your family, you considered your relationship with your moms, too. You got along with your moms. You had disagreements with them, but at the end of the day, you loved them and they loved you. That's what really mattered. Well, say what you want to say about them, but at least your moms never tried to pay someone to be your friend. The thought prompted you to look over at Cove. You probably still didn't know that happened. You doubt that Mr. Holden mentioned it, and you never had. You wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. You didn't tell him. You weren't sure how he'd react. What if he got really upset? Just thinking about his possible reaction made you nervous. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were busy making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective days. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your heads in unison.
Oh.
Oh, time for dinner.
Cole watched the firmly shut door he had been locked behind for most of the night, but he didn't make a move or get up from his bed. You couldn't see his face, so you didn't know what expression he was wearing.
I'm glad you came.
Cole peeked back at you from the side.
It's been awkward.
I get that. It's been hard on you, huh? Felt sympathetic towards him. You didn't know where he was, what he was going through, but you cared about him. Cole said nothing else and remained sat where he was. Now would be a good time to ask him why his parents so suddenly wanted you to come over. Is there a reason you wanted me to come over tonight?
It hasn't been awkward for just... Sometimes it gets like this when no one else is around. But now you're here.
Huh, you hadn't considered that, but it sort of made sense in a way. There was another shout from outside. The two muffled actually know the words, but you could imagine what they were.
go.
Cole finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed after him. Together, two, you made your way back to the living room. As you expected, Cole's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table, besides the windows overlooking the back of the house. You would have been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed at you and Cove and took your place, as you and Cove took your places.
Hope everyone's hungry. I cooked up a feast.
Yeah.
I know I am.
Yeah.
Cole's mumbled response wasn't nearly as upbeat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, or they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you, grinning.
Thanks.
Let's all just take a moment to thank our special guest for being with us here tonight. I'm so glad you were able to make it, Susan, and on such short notice, too.
You thanked Cole's parents for inviting you.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you both for inviting me.
All right.
Well, that's it. Everyone, please, dig in. You can help yourselves to the food.
Upon his encouragement, he looked over the meal spread out in front of you. There was a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There were lots of sides and optional sauces to add. You could work with this. You didn't mind Mexican food. Mom loved it, so you ate it as a family often. In a way, it made your first dinner at the Holden house feel a bit more normal. Utensils and plates scraped and clanked together as the group began filling their plates.
Cliff, could you pass the salsa verde?
Of course.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let me just say, you really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous.
Jealous of what? Your cooking's nothing to sneeze at, Kyra.
Cole's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. You chimed in as well.
Did it take you a long time to cook all this, Mr. Holden?
Oh, not at all. Sure, this is more than I usually make from Cove and I, but I enjoyed every second of it.
Aha.
Might have gone faster if you had some help, though.
Cole's mom grumbled, but it was lighthearted. Mr. Holden chuckled and shook his head.
Not this again. I make the rules here, and I say guests don't cook.
Even when they're staying for literal weeks.
Come on.
Even then.
Everything
Sorry.
looks great, Dad, as always.
Thanks, sport. Glad you think so.
Cole smiled. It was genuine, even if it was strained at the corners. Brief silence intersped the small talk. You piled some food on your plate, waiting for your turn as if someone was serving themselves a dish that you would have had your eyes on. Once the food had been divided and settled down, Cole's parents started talking again.
Now then.
You sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you.
How's it going?
How's everything been over at your house? Your mom's well? You've been keeping busy this summer? Or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during the break?
You were more than happy to answer. Cole's parents seemed honestly interested to hear from you. You were kind of flattered by the attention. You answered how things were at your house.
It's been good.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Told them how your moms were doing.
My moms are great. Moms took us out for dessert a couple weeks ago since her project went really, really well. Is that so? I'll have to congratulate her when I see her.
You mentioned things you've done this summer. I'm not sure where to start. There's so much that happened. Mr. Holden's brow raised when you answered him with that.
You sure keeping yourself busy. I could learn a thing or two from you.
And that was your question answering. Kira nodded along. You could tell she was actually listening to the words you were saying. She was trying to include you, not humor you.
Did you know, Cliff? Susan is really into writing.
Mr. Holden's face lit up as he stopped eating so he could lean forward. His arms braced against the table.
Nice work.
Oh, that's right. Very cool.
It's just a hobby. There's nothing wrong with that.
Fanfics.
It's good to do things just for fun. Everyone needs a hobby. I've been thinking of picking up wood carving myself.
You couldn't tell how serious he was speaking about that declaration.
Thanks.
Cole's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much about them. There was a lull in conversation as everyone focused their attention on their respective plates. You noticed not for the first time that Cole's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. I wonder if you should break the silence this time. You brought up your own topic of conversation.
I also like other things. Would you tell us more?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
They looked genuinely eager for you to keep talking, so you did. The rest of the dinner continued just like that, with light conversation as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes on the kitchen table were pretty much gone. Kira set her fork down and rested her arms at her sides, letting loose a satisfied sigh. Her plate was completely empty.
Thanks.
That was delish. Thank you for your culinary creations, Cliff.
Mr. Holden was like a flower soaking up all the rays of the sun. He beamed, flattered by the praise. You ate way too much. You practically let your plate clean. You were so full that you were afraid you might burst. Cole successfully kept his presence to a minimum for the meal. He was slumped over, even now toying with his silverware. His parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation failed. It wasn't typical for him to say so little. He at least tried to participate. You didn't get much to contemplate Clove's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden, pointedly clearing his voice.
Not to sound like a broken record, but thanks for coming, Susan. I'm glad we finally got the chance to have you over for a real dinner.
What?
What? Did I hear that right? This is the first time Susan ever had dinner here? Why in the world haven't you invited her over sooner?
Cove was always the one going over to Susan's house until now. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offers of the Sakura family to host my
Kira shook her head, but the amused smile she was sporting told you that she wasn't actually mad.
This guy, honestly.
Three looked at Cove in unison, his small sound being more than enough to focus on him after the silence. By now he stopped fiddling with his fork.
I
Would
mean,
it be alright for Susan to stay up? Like for the night?
He shot you a shy glance then, smiling a little.
If you're cool with it.
Mr. Holden's shoulders stiffened. He sat up straighter, eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth open, but not a peep came out. You'd never seen Cove's dad say no to him before, but this was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was lost. Then Cole's mom reached down and took a hold of his shirt collar. She pulled him closer. She glanced at both of you before leaning in and bringing a hand up in front of their faces. The two adults whispered seriously to each other. Cole's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversation. Mr. Holden kept gesturing with his hands while Kira made sure he didn't get too far away with all his movements. Every now and then, both of them would watch you and Cove out of the corner of their eyes. It didn't sound like they were fighting to you. They looked like some tiny sports team having a private huddle. After a bit, they broke the group up. They moved back to sit properly in their chairs. You snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear their verdict, too.
Kyra and I think that should be fine, but...
He lifted a finger dramatically, his brow raising as he met Cove's gaze and then your own.
We'll have to talk with Susan's parents. Sure they be comfortable with it. If they are, we can arrange for a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone's more prepared. If Susan's folks don't like the idea, there's nothing we can do.
He finished the main speech with a wide shrug and using his full arms. He also checked out Kira from the corner of his eye and gave her a crooked smile. She nodded approvingly and grinned back. You thought you saw her give a thumbs up, but her hand was partially blocked by the table. They looked so pleased with themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual decision on whether it was alright or not to someone else, namely your parents. If this was a sports game, they would have punted the ball away. Cove hung his head deflated. He had been hoping he could stay over today, not some hypothetical time in the future.
Psst, I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. If you get your home phone too, then we can still talk even though I'll be back home.
Cove's eyes sparkled at the suggestion. It may or may not end up being possible, but it was worth trying. With that, dinner finally came to an end. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which she did with little fuss. Kira tried to lend a hand as well, however Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seemed she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. You weren't allowed to chip in either, since you were there as the declared guest of honor. Although the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home just yet after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up the mess, Kira disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. It was a bit strange sitting by yourself while everyone else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple of minutes, Cole's mom returned with a deck of cards in hand. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling.
So, who's up for a few rounds?
Cove and his dad looked over their shoulder at the question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hands. She beamed at their expressions and stepped further into the living room. Ignoring the couches, she sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitedly. You accepted and followed the lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could definitely still be felt. Kira did an overhand shuffle while she waited for the others to finish their tasks. Their smile had yet to leave her lips.
Great.
This is going to be good.
You were excited. You enjoyed card games, and it'll be fun to play with Cove and his parents. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to wrap things up enough to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, followed closely behind by Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation.
Alright, I'm ready.
As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed that Cove hadn't joined them. He went straight down the hall instead without even a word. He stared on confused as he disappeared through his bedroom door. Cole's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Kira nonchalantly split the cards into two and rifled the halves together while offering an explanation of sorts.
Cove doesn't keep his wallet with him when he's at home. He puts it away. What?
Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took place at the foot of the table with the rest of you. You blinked as Cove unzipped his wallet.
You all use real money on card games with family?
While you sat there, your hands idled in your lap, the three shot looks at once at one another and sized each other up.
Yeah.
That's right. $5 per round per person, winner takes all.
Go big or go home.
Oh, are you planning on kicking Susan to the curb? Or do you intend on donating to the guest of honor's pot, Mr. High Roller?
Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease.
No worries.
Hey, Susan wants to play. I'll find her way in. Don't you worry about that.
He rested his arm across the top of his knee that he propped up. Cove's dad was slick in a way you'd never seen him before. He appreciated his offer.
Thanks, Mr. Holden.
His tone and stance instantly became more familiarly friendly when he started directing his words to you.
No problem. Count on me.
You can let me pay for the Tuesday. Friend.
Mr. Holden grinned with a chuckle.
Good kid.
Alright, bud, I concede. You're too polite for me.
Well, you've got your ticket. Interested in throwing in? You glanced around. This seemed like serious business. In response to your consideration, Kira softened her competitive smile.
Don't worry too much. We'll probably just do some rounds of Go Fish tonight. No biggie.
Do you mind?
What do you think?
You joined in.
I'd love to play.
Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up while Cove nodded firmly back. You were decent at Go Fish. Sometimes you won, sometimes you lost. You like to think you weren't bad at it, though.
Fantastic. Play for however long everyone wants to keep going, or until people start running out of cash, but still refusing to quit while they're behind.
Speaking for yourself, I see.
With a laugh, Kira nudged you using an elbow, then motioned towards the other two with her chin.
Don't be fooled by their soft faces. These boys are sharks.
In reaction to her words, Mr. Holden smirked and Cove's eyebrows became more angled. Kira's phrase made you think back to when you were young, specifically of Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Perhaps they'd been a fit for him in a way you didn't know of. He felt the tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued their eyes to one another, then all placed $5 bills in an empty space in front of them. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you a tiny smile after he did. Once this was done, Kira began dealing out cards to everybody. It was time to begin. The first round came and went quickly, with the group getting into the groove of things. You won right away, which meant you had money to keep playing the second round.
You're a natural.
Nicely done. You better keep those wits about you for the next round, though.
As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Kira acted as a news anchor, reporting on every move everyone made by speaking into her curled fist. Cove was still up a few words, but
Now it seemed because he was focused on the game instead of being overcome with awkwardness, most of the time he even spotted a smile on his lips. You didn't win many of the games, but the others have always chipped in for you. In fact, it was always a bit of a fight over who got to be your backer. It became clear that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving it back to one another in other ways, and not just through more rounds of cards. You sat back looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Cole's family was pretty cool, you thought. You were glad you got the chance to come over to spend time with the three of them. And that was that.
Nice.
Yeah. That took like 40 minutes, wow.
Jeez.
Alright. Go ahead, you get more water later.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna take the phone out. This thing's been plugged in for a while. There.
Yeah, make sure you did grab water, right?
Yeah, I'm more than fine for this.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
I
Next
understand
one.
and appreciate
Road trip!
it. Yep.
Even though you were awake, the sun had barely peeked its head above the horizon. The sky above was still dark, though lightening by the minute. Usually you wouldn't be up so early, especially during summer vacation, but today was different. Today, instead of the lazy days you were used to, everything around you was a flurry of activity as both your families and Coves prepared for what lay ahead. Because parked in the street just outside your house was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even see Cove's house behind it. His parents had rented the RV for a few days to take him on a short road trip to see the Redwood National Park. He glanced at Cove, who was standing nearby, taking in the scene in front of him. The prospect of the trip had to be a mixed bag for him, but it was only 3 days, so it seemed like he was dealing with it as best he could. Especially now that you and your family were joining them. You weren't sure how exactly it had happened. You knew your parents and Cove spoke to each other often, and somewhere along the way, plans were made after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. You had already gotten a good look inside while helping to load everything in, and you had to admit that while it was a really big car, fitting that many people inside was going to be snug.
Let's go.
Move it or lose it, kiddo! Mom bustled past with a cooler in one hand and a large bottle of water under the other. She was upbeat for this early in the morning. Ma, however, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She followed behind her wife, dragging her feet on every step. I'm going to need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. You felt like you were a middle ground between the two. You just tried to keep up, and took in some deep breaths. The air was still a little damp from the dew, but you didn't mind it. And then at the end of the chain came your sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. Her rattling off critique added some levels of normalcy to everything new going on.
Ugh.
I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. Susan is the youngest, and I'll never fall asleep in that loft. We're trying to make things fair on everyone. If you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take the loft both nights. It's important for big siblings to make sacrifices for their younger ones. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with the answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, leaning back against the side of the RV. The trip plans had been nailed down prior, sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on to her objection with them. There was a main area of the RV with a couch, loft, and some floor space. At the end of the car was a room with a large bed. Your moms were sharing the bed, Kira was on the couch, and father and son intended to sleep on the floor. The adults determined you and Elizabeth would switch between the small loft above the driver's seat and sharing the bed with moms. You were fine with the arrangements. As long as you had a place to rest your head on some description, it didn't bother you. Alright, Eli, does everyone have everything they need? We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now's the time to double check. You don't want to forget something important. At the word, Elizabeth yelled and dashed back into the house, her bedhead hair bouncing behind her as she went. Ma came over and gave you a smile, setting her hands on her hips. How about you, Susan? Do you have all your clothes packed? Toiletries, deodorant, floss, anything else you could think of? Oh, you had to run back inside for something. Sprinting up the stairs to the bathroom, you grabbed your toothbrush from beside the sink before heading back down. You're glad you remembered to grab it after having left it out to use this morning. It would have been embarrassing if you couldn't brush your teeth for the next few days. Your mom was still out there waiting for a knowing expression as you walked out again. Got everything now, Susan? Yeah. With a few minutes left to spare before leaving, you mentally went over what you had packed for the trip. Clothes, a pillow and blanket, usual day-to-go gear for most people. You also had more personal things such as portable gaming console. The drive to Owen National Park would take an entire day one way, so you wanted to make sure you had a way to entertain yourself while traveling there and back. Pencils and paper. You had to be prepared in case you saw something to sketch at the park, or if you had to write anything down, or if you needed to pass time just doodling. Your favorite stuffed animal? An outfit always made you feel more comfortable whenever you went somewhere new. It was like taking a new little piece of home away with you. I can relate. I always have an animal with me. A couple things to read. You packed one of your favorite old favorites and a new one you'd never tried before. You knew you had plenty of time for them both on such a long drive. Your camera. Just a little pocket camera you got from your mom's, but you couldn't miss the opportunity to take some new snaps. MP3 player with headphones. So much time going to be spent driving in a car, you wanted to make sure you'd be able to have some music to put on. Let's get a ball, too. This one got a ball to play around with in the field behind your house. You thought everyone might enjoy having something to do while at the park. That was everything. Hey, let me cake that for you, Susan. I'll stow it in the RV. There's a few spots left. It'll fit. You let Kyra take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched the others getting ready for the trip. Kira and Cliff seemed to have the most energy out of anyone. They were finishing packing the suitcases while you and your moms had gone to lock up the house. They high-fived whenever another one got crammed into the storage compartment of the vehicle. Even though your parents were more low-key than Coves, you couldn't tell that they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been away anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped towards the RV, a bag slung over her shoulder, and you were surprised to see she seemed more optimistic about the whole ordeal now. Usually she wasn't the one to exit the confines of her room unless it was for TV or food, or to leave the family behind to be with friends. You would have thought 3 whole days packed in an RV with 6 others would be too much for her, but it was a nice surprise. You suppose any other vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. Cole had been pretty quiet so far, and more than anything seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. You're excited for the trip too. It was great to get away and explore new places. Soon the miscellaneous remaining tasks had all been wrapped up. Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start. As it did, Cliff took the first ship drive, and he cautiously navigated the massive car out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was touch and go for the first part of the journey. Your moms and Kira were all huddled in the front trying to get a view of how much space they had on each side. There was a sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. The mom's group cleared out of the driver's area, leaving Cove's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. He felt like you could finally relax now too. Time slipped as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out of the driver's seat and Mom took over. Mom was sitting shotgun, giving Mom a quick tutorial on the controls. It was her first time driving anything this large. Cliff groaned as he headed towards the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles.
We're making good progress.
Yeah, maybe you should take a nap in the back for a while. That was a long haul you just did, and I know you're on less sleep than usual. Cliff waved a hand, that trademark grin of his slipping into place.
Nah.
I don't need sleep. I still got a few miles in the old tank.
He flexed an arm, showing off his muscles to drive the point of how resilient he was home, and Kira rolled her eyes in amusement.
Dad,
That's you.
Dad, everybody has to sleep.
Cove shook his head at the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair.
So?
Are you gonna be driving it again anytime soon, Mr. Holden? I wanna know so I can prepare. Did anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up here. Elizabeth called down from where she was lounging in the loft above the driver's compartment. She was laying on her back, her hair falling over the side and swinging down as the RV started up again and took off down the road. A bag of potato chips was balanced on Elizabeth's stomach as she tossed a couple in her mouth. Right as Cliff held a hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark, Kira laughed lightheartedly.
Don't worry about that.
Lucky for all of us, we have enough adults to cover the shifts today. He will be driving again until tomorrow.
He stayed quiet. He didn't have anything to add to the conversation, but it was pretty funny all the same. Mom then shouted back in her seat to join the conversation, a playful smile tilting her lips.
What? What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again before falling apart.
It looks as though it was built in the early 90s. It must be older than some of the occupants.
That's just the aesthetic of the decor. It's, not that old. I think.
Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it?
Kira wrinkled her nose in thought.
Hey!
Yes, I did. I just can't remember what the answer was.
Cliff chuckled at her while the rest of you let out a collective sigh. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held onto the ladder of the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze the top of your head before a weight settled on your brown hair. When you tilted your chin up carefully to look, you heard the rustling of the bag of chips and realized Elizabeth had rested the end of it on your head. She gestured to the opening, sounding offering you to share her snack. You took a handful. Reaching up, you scooped up some of the chips, as after the weight of the bag left your scalp. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on, and you got closer and closer to your destination. The day flew by with the group of you chatting, playing games, and passing the time together before finally arriving at the park and settling up for the night. Ma was closing the windows while everyone got ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way to the back room. You all had dinner together while still driving, and some hours after you had arrived at your destination and found a spot to park in for the rest of your stay. Giving a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were. Kova completely fallen asleep, curled up in the passenger seat. He must have done so while Kira was driving the last leg, and they had decided not to disturb him. Kira herself was the only one up who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to a portable light from her spot on the couch. It seemed Mr. Holden needed sleep despite his claims. You followed your moms into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling onto the bed between them. It was a queen-size bed, so there was enough space for the three of you together without too much squishing.
Good night.
Get a good rest, Susan. We got a big day ahead of us tomorrow.
That's fantastic.
I'm looking forward to the bushwalk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this.
There'll be plenty for us to see. You stayed awake for a little while longer while your moms whispered about the park and forest in general. With the sound of their voices in the background, eventually you nodded off to sleep. The next morning you were up bright and early preparing for the day ahead. You slept well. You fell asleep before you knew it and had woken up rested. Ma winced a bit about the firmness of the mattress, but Mom had only encouraged her to enjoy the trip while she could. While looking for a spot to get ready, you had some trouble finding a space of your own as the others were doing the same thing. Cole was perched on top of the counter, brushing his hair and tucking up his legs every time someone wanted to move past. The parents were checking, double-checking, and triple-checking that you had everything to the point that where you had stopped listening to them altogether. You know you wouldn't be returning to the RV at all that day, but by the look of the backpacks that were packed up and ready to go, you doubted anything was missing from them. It didn't take much longer until you all exited the RV in a bustle and headed into the Redwood National Park.
Wow.
Remember, they voice like a certain line. You don't have to say it, so.
Oh, okay.
Kova tilted his head upwards towards the canopy of the trees, his eyes wide as he took in the massive trunks on either side of you. You knew that the redwood trees here were considered the tallest trees on Earth, but you weren't prepared for exactly how huge they would be in person.
Come on.
Smile, you two!
You spun just in time for Kira to snap a picture of you and Kova together before she pointed the camera at Cliff, trying to get a shot despite his weak protest that she should just enjoy the moment. Your parents were walking behind the group a little, while Mom telling Ma some information she had read about the park in a brochure. Ma listened happily while looking around and taking in the sights, every now and then asking a question or making a joke about something Mom had said. You smiled at them, thinking your moms must have read a lot of the pamphlets to know so much about the park.
Maybe you should come and work here as a tour guide if you know so much about that place. Elizabeth teased, earning a squeeze on the nose from your mom. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but you thought that might just be because she was amused by everyone else's reactions. You were in awe of the redwood trees. Surrounding you on either side, the enormous trees shot up into the sky, the sunlight peeking through their canopy and speckling the path in front of you. The sheer size of the redwood made you feel like tiny ants bustling along through the forest. You'd also decided on some casual nature walks rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. Elizabeth sat up a little, smirking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you, and immediately you could tell by her expression she was going to say something taunting. I can't believe our families are actually on a vacation together. She threw her arms out, speaking with a genuine sense of bewilderment. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove smiled at her, even if it was a little awkwardly, and continued walking along. Just watch. Next year they'll be talking about their next new amazing idea. She put on a fake voice deeper than her own. We should sell both of our houses and move in together. Think of how much we'd save on the mortgage. It was clear that Elizabeth was being sarcastic. Cole simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. He supposed he was used to it by this point. But seriously, they really do act like we're a single family just because we live across the street from each other. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look. Her eyes glinted with mischief as she leered at you.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll be related. Legally, anyway. She said it as though she was a gossipy old lady. But as she almost immediately dropped the tone and nonchalantly said her real thoughts. At least that's what Ma thinks. Cove still blushed, which made Elizabeth smile triumphantly, as though that was her whole purpose for teasing him. Then he mumbled quietly, refusing to make eye contact with either of you.
I don't know why you think you're so funny when no one else does.
You were embarrassed. Why'd she always have to say things like that? It wasn't fun and she knew it. After no further replies, your sister walked ahead. You and Cope swapped uncomfortable looks. The day continued on with plenty to see and experience. You passed a few different activities that you would have liked to try out if you had the time, such as kayaking and rock climbing, but Ma said that would have to wait for another trip. There was a little stream during the walk you sat beside it and set out a picnic for lunch, nibbling on a selection of fruits, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew by overhead, and you made a game out of guessing the species that were hanging out in the trees nearby. You even managed to get a couple of them right, including the kingfisher that grabbed half a Cliff's sandwich. You thought the long trip wasn't worth the only day here. With what you saw today was only a fraction of what the park offered, you wondered why Cole's parents hadn't planned a longer trip. You sighed quietly to yourself, wondering if you'd get the chance to come back. You and the group made it back to camp just as the sun was setting in the sky, and the stars were appearing one by one. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it. You traded stories from what you thought while you were eating dinner, then afterwards you pitched in to help clean up. You, along with Elizabeth and Cope, got to head back to the RV early and spend some time together while the parents stayed outside longer. It was nice to have the space to yourself after the cramped journey there, and while Elizabeth had locked herself in the back room with her headphones, you and Cove were left in the main lounge area. You hung out with Cove. You might as well get comfortable. Who knows how long they'll be out for?
You took a seat on the sofa while Cove sat down on the other end, tapping his fingers against his knees. Your cheeks warmed a little at that. Being close to him never failed to feel exciting. You see Cove nearly every day for the past 5 years, but seeing him in a jacket was still somewhat unusual. In Southern California, he could get away with that. It was a simple difference from his normal style, yet you couldn't help noticing the way he looked right now. It looked great on him. In fact, Cove always looked nice. When Cove cleared his throat, your eyes snapped to him. He had an eyebrow raised and he had clearly caught you staring at him.
What?
Is everything okay?
That looks nice on you.
Cove immediately blushed at the unexpected compliment.
What?
He didn't say anything more than one-word questions. He decided to elaborate further.
You know, I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket, especially in summer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like wearing as few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot, and it's a pain to carry extra clothes around. My parents made me bring this jacket.
I don't mind either way. I just dress depending on the weather or how I'm feeling at the time. Cole smiled lightly at you and nodded.
I've noticed.
You perked up hearing that. He noticed you too? What do you like to see others wear? Hey, what kind of things do you think are nice to see on another person? Cole's eyes widened at the question, and his defensive reply seemed to slip out before he had the chance to have a proper think about it.
Nothing.
That was funny. You laughed out loud and Cole gave you a dry look.
Come on.
Come on. That's not what I meant.
You composed yourself and sat up straighter, all traces of laughter disappearing from your face. Answer is what you mean then. Isn't there anything at all you think looks good when you see it on someone? Cole mumbled under his breath. He couldn't quite catch the words. He was having a difficult time with the subject. I swear I won't make fun of you.
That's not really it.
Cole seemed pretty grumpy about your statement, but you weren't ready to give up so easily. Please? Cole sighed and looked down at his lap where he was fidgeting with his hands, still reluctant to give an answer.
I don't know.
He made an unimpressed sound from how this was going. Are you sure?
Fine, I guess I kind of like ankle bracelets.
Ankle bracelets?
Yeah, everyone can wear a pretty bracelet. Wrist ones are cool too, but they're pretty normal. Something fun or flirty about ankle bracelets.
I
More
mean...
special or something. I don't know how to explain.
Cole brushed his knuckles against his cheek awkwardly, seemingly unsure where to go from here. Thanks for answering.
You're welcome.
When he said nothing else, you took a moment to gather your own thoughts. You thought about buying an anklet of your own. You see some good ones in the shops in town. You tried to remember to check it out more closely the next time you were there. Cole looked away again, feeling awkward about this. He gave him an understanding look, and usually he would start to smile like normal again, but not this time. His expression only stiffened more. You're surprised to see him like this, because he'd always bounce back pretty quickly after being flustered. Cove? Still, he wouldn't look at you, and now even his breathing was growing tense. It began to click. He was trying to build himself up to say something hard for him. You waited for it silently. Until finally, he peeked your way through the corners of his eyes. You're fully attentive by this point for whatever he was going to mention next.
That's,
People having brown eyes, that's also something I like.
Huh? For a moment you were stunned at it, and at a compliment complete loss for words. That was definitely not where you imagined this was going. Cope faced you head on, his expression full of desperate meaning. You got the distinct impression he hadn't chosen it just because he liked the color brown. He chose it entirely because it was your eye color. Was he trying to flirt with you? That was all you could think of. Your legs felt like jelly and you wondered if you might fall right off the couch.
Well, what do you like for another person?
Glasses? Cole looked away thoughtfully. He couldn't quite tell what was going through his mind. You look especially good in them. Cole blushed a deeper shade of red and his mouth fell open, acknowledging that you had specified him straight out. Now you were both flirting with each other. He placed his hand on his lap and looked down. It seemed that he hadn't expected to get this far and didn't know where to go from there. With the topic abruptly dropped off, Cove occasionally had no more to say on it. The parents had arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some place to sit down and rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard the commotion, came out from the room for the first time since arriving and joined you all. You spent the evening chatting and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. Bedtime arrived within the blink of an eye. As the group hunkered down for the night, your mom did a final round to be sure nothing had been left behind. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, like on the first day, but would be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all of them to get up. Now was the time to check you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident you had it all packed up inside the RV. which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey home tomorrow. Your moms and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading to the back room while you climbed up to the loft. Cove and his family got situated below in the previously set arrangement. You tried to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It's hard to believe that the trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own bed at home. You enjoyed this mini-adventure. It was short, that was for sure, but you got to see and do so much during your time here. All in all, it was a nice break away from home. The minutes ticked by silently. It didn't take long for the soft snores of Cliff and Kira to drift up to you. They were asleep now. You wondered if Cove was still awake and decided to poke your head up in the loft to find out. You blinked in the dark. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, his eyes staring up at the ceiling. His seafoam hair was spread out on his sleeping bag. He must have felt you watching him because suddenly his eyes locked on yours. It was difficult to see him in the dim light, but you could make out the crooked smile on his face well enough. You waved at him. Cove waved back, still smiling at you through the dim light. You gestured for him to come over. Cove still looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see him slowly start to sit up anyway. His sleeping bag rustled as he moved, though he tried to go slow and froze like a deer in the headlights every time he made a sound, watching his parents for any sign of movement. Eventually, he maneuvered around his sleeping dad and made it to the ladder, standing on the bottom rung while he looked up at you and whispered.
What?
You invited him up to the loft. Do you want to come up? His eyes widened just so. You can only tell because he had come to where you were. Cove glanced behind him quickly at his sleeping parents before turning back to you.
Okay.
You broke out into a grin and scooched back as far as you could, making space for Cove to crawl in. He was very tall, so it wasn't a great fit for him, but he managed to squeeze himself in. Even if you weren't exactly tall, the loft was still a tight squeeze with the two of you in it together. You laid down next to each other on your side, face to face. You got under the blanket a bit. One of his arms was nestled under his head for comfort. The other had nowhere to go and was resting alongside his chest on the floor of the loft. Cove spoke to you quietly.
So, what am I doing here?
I thought we could hang out. Cove's eyebrows dipped. He probably thought you had something more important than that going on.
I'm not sure about that.
Cove smiled loudly, and you noticed he wouldn't look you in the eyes anymore. You felt comfortable being close to him. It seemed natural to have him near you, and being close like this only made it better. You thought back to earlier in the evening when you and Cove had been talking alone on the sofa. He had definitely been flirting then, and now you were here. You nudged closer to him. You inched towards Cove slowly, your legs pressing together in the very limited space. Cove's face flushed dark enough to notice even the almost pitch-black RV cabin, the hand resting in front of him tight and balling into a fist. You okay?
Yeah.
I'm fine. I mean, I'm not dying or anything.
Cove's eyebrows bent up nervously, but his smile widened. He followed your lead and curled himself deeper into the loft and closer to you. He looked away as he did. There was almost no space between he and you. Cove's breast tickled the side of your face. For a moment, you stayed together like that. Neither of you spoke a word. When your eyes locked again, Cove seemed almost taken aback by the situation. Still, he hadn't completely hit him what it was going to feel like to do, and as though it hadn't completely hit him what it was going to feel like to do this until now. He opened his mouth to say something, but shut it before anything came out. Should we do it?
Geez.
Should we do it? Should we do it?
It's your character, so do it.
I'm gonna kiss him. I'm gonna try and kiss him.
Here we go.
You moved even closer, half eyes closed as your lips inched towards his so slowly. Cove froze immediately. You could tell his body trembling against you as you neared. You grew close enough to be one motion away from placing your lips together. Then all at once he bolted upright, completely forgetting the restrictions of the location, and smacking his head against the roof of the RV with a loud crack, making you gasp aloud. Cove! Are you okay? Cove didn't answer. He fell back to the loft floor in a flustered pile. He pressed one hand against his head and the other over his face as he groaned in pain. The sound of movements in the RV below startled you. And when you looked over the side, you noticed Cliff had similarly shot up and was looking around wildly.
What's wrong?
Yeah, we got people. Something happened.
Cliff reached over to where Kira was on the couch, and she whined as he shook her out of a sleep deep enough not to be interrupted by the chaos. Oh, what's going on? And then the lights came on and she scrambled into the blanket to avoid being seen, but it was too late.
What?
Bruh.
Cove, where are you? Susan, are you... Oh! It only took a second for Kira to figure out where her son had gone, and you soon heard Cliff's chuckles as he too realized.
You were warned there wasn't much room up there, bud.
Cove groaned terribly again, but this time it was out of humiliation. He moved his hand from his sore scalp to also cover his shame rather than face his parents.
Hey!
What's all the noise out there? To your horror, the door at the back of the RV opened, and Elizabeth, as well as your moms, peeked their heads out into the hall. Is everything okay?
Sorry.
It's nothing. Sorry for waking you up.
Cove curled him into himself, not completely humiliated as he apologized a couple more times. Not loud enough for anyone other than you to hear, though. He just tried to check on him. Hey, how's your head? With another whimper, Cove pushed himself up onto his side.
I should probably get Mom to look at it.
Kira casually came over to the edge of the loft. She patted her son on the back. Come to Mama, baby. You can't stay there. There was no putting it off. Cove climbed down the ladder, his face still red as a tomato when he reached the bottom. His dad gave him a nudge on the shoulder as he passed, trying to hold back renewed laughter, and his mom pulled him over to give his head a quick look over. After announcing it wasn't anything more serious than a bump, Cove shuffled over to his sleeping bag on the ground. He collapsed into it, not caring if he should be more cautious with his head right now.
Sure.
Alright, show's over. Let's all get some sleep.
You could hear the snickers from the back of the RV from your moms and Elizabeth. They really had been watching this unfold like it was a piece of entertainment. But at that, they quickly said goodnight and headed to bed. With nothing more you could do, you lay back down as the lights went off again. You stayed there completely still, unsure, until sleep finally took over you. When you woke up the next morning, it was to the rumble of the RV as it traveled to the long journey home. Blinking the sleep in your eyes, you peeked over the edge of the loft slowly, trying not to be seen. Cove was sitting on the couch with his mom, the two of them talking quietly together. His head was hung low. You blushed when you remembered what it was like last night, just the two of you up in the loft together and the way you almost kissed. Kira suddenly looked up and caught your eye as your face grew even hotter, though she simply smiled at you. You knew it was going to be a long, long time before either of you lived this down, if you ever did. Soon your moms and Elizabeth emerged from their rooms, dressed and ready for the day of travel. You spent most of the day hanging out together in the RV, savoring the last few hours of vacation. Kira suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove when she was younger, and you all had a great time competing against each other. A little later in the day, you tried to talk to Cove about what happened in the loft, but he simply apologized and changed the subject. It was a bit too much for him to try speaking on, especially right now. You understood. When the RV finally pulled onto your street, it was well into the night, and you were looking forward to crawling into your own bed after the last few days. Everyone else must have been feeling the same because mutually agreed that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Once home again, you went straight to your room and dropped onto your bed, shoes and all. You missed being near Cove. The two of you had basically been living together for 3 days. It was nice. But you knew that wouldn't be the last time the two of you spent time together, and that thought comforted you. With those last few thoughts drifting through your mind, it wasn't long before you dozed off to sleep. Tomorrow life would go on like normal. And how was that? We almost kissed.
Yeah.
How are we doing? Hour and 13 minutes. Not bad. I hope everybody's been enjoying the stream so far. I know chat's been, I know a lot of people might be lurking right now, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I gotta get some more water, so be right back.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
I forgot to mute my mic. I probably did. Whoops.
Oof.
Hello?
Yeah,
You
still
still
there.
hear me?
Yep.
Hold on.
Yep. Oh.
Oh, I was muted. Somehow I muted. Whoops.
Oof. Okay.
Alright. Why am I getting so many pings? Hold on a minute. Ooh. Sorry. Oh, that's cute.
Wait,
Eh?
what'd you see?
Someone posted a, Oh, he's on too. Okay. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you feel about ASMR, but... Hey, nice. Okay, not bad, not bad. Huh, okay. Sorry, I was just looking at stuff. Apparently, Sean's wife has been making candles, and they apparently just now sold out every one of her candles at they had a booth at Crunchyroll Expo, and they sold all their candles.
Nice.
Yeah. Good for them.
Yeah.
I've actually been enjoying Crunchyroll Expo pics, cause the Hollow Tempest members had spots at the Hollow Meets, which is basically meeting Hololive characters. They weren't like virtual meetings, but they had like these boards of like these like animated pictures almost that you could like pose with. It's really cute. And of course Altair was one of them. Alright, let's see. We're still about an hour in. I'm doing okay, so let's continue to the next one. Mall. Lee's visit today turned out to be more involved than you expected. After overhearing wherever the Holden family was going, Lee insisted on seeing Mr. Holden's shop firsthand. An hour later, and Lee was busy looking at every item on display. Because Cove's dad offers supplies, lessons, and tours, the shop had all the scuba-related stuff you can imagine. Fins, masks, suits, and snorkels. After circling around the shop, he finally stopped and looked at the whole room. This was the first time he'd been here, too. The mystery was finally gone. Over the years, you heard bits and pieces about what Cove's dad did from Cove, Derek and Mr. Holden, and now here you were standing smack dab in the middle of it. You were in good spirits. This was a pleasant surprise. Something always came up whenever you might have had a chance to visit the shop before. You were happy Leo insisted on Mr. Holden bringing you both along today. Lee was still busy poking through the various wetsuits displays, so you decided to see what Derek and Cove were doing. They were too absorbed in their conversation to notice you standing near them, leaning against the counter. You were able to pick up the topic quickly.
Anyway.
Oh. My dad told me the new stuff is selling like crazy.
Yeah, the material has this new blend with less neoprene. My dad says people are really interested in it.
It brought a smile to your face hearing that the shop was doing well. You decided to keep listening. It was interesting to watch them speak about what they knew.
And really, there's just so much to think about with the business. It's crazy. No matter how much I come, I still don't think I get it.
Cove hummed and nodded in agreement casually, causing a good-humored laugh from Derek.
I thought you only liked the scuba diving part, not the jump part.
That's just the best part. I think about other things too.
I gotcha.
Go! Business side, running it. That's my favorite.
Out of the corner of your eye, you caught movement, and you realized that Lee was now standing next to you.
When your dads retire, do you guys think you're gonna carry on the store?
Both sons shrugged in unison.
Well,
There's tons of things I could do. My dad thinks so too. He doesn't want me to plan on working here forever.
Cove's gaze bounced to the floor. You could see the conflict flashing across his face.
I don't know.
I don't know, it's odd. Being the real boss of something and totally in charge.
No matter what you do, but shop or not or no shop, you'll be amazing.
Derek smiled in equal parts happiness and bashful. He bounced on his feet a bit.
Thanks, Susan. I'm happy you believe in us.
Me too.
Cole's parents left the back of the office and came over, catching your attention.
Sorry, kids. Looks like it's gonna be a long one. I know usually others hold the fort down, but I really need to stay here today. I know you just wanted a little visit. It'd be boring getting stuck all day because of me. Kyra can take my car and go back to the neighborhood.
Cobe and Derek gave him an understanding look. Mr. Holden crossed his arms and flashed you all a big smile, trying to lift the mood.
The one condition is that someone has to remember to come back for me later. You don't get to strand me here, no matter how funny you think that might be.
Kyra gave a laugh and a thumbs up. Mr. Holden seemed satisfied with that. He moved on with the explanation.
Derek, your dad also has his hands full today, so he doesn't have time to run you back home.
It's okay.
It's alright, sir.
The title "Sir" got an awkward chuckle out of Cliff, which was cut short when Kira elbowed him teasingly.
What do you think?
You already said I could borrow your car. Why don't I take all the kids somewhere fun for the afternoon?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's fine with me. Just please come back eventually, sometime today, Kyra. I can only fight the Eldritch Abomination for so long.
After multiple jokes about being left with no ride, you had to wonder if that actually happened in their past together.
For you, my good sir, I swear. Cross my heart.
Happy with the promise, Cliff took out his black wallet and offered a $50 bill to Kyra.
Here, in case you need gas or anything else while you're out.
Kira smiled knowingly and accepted the bill without hesitation.
Thank you.
Cole's dad stuck to the wallet back into his back pocket while he laid at with the free hand.
Alright, time for me to jump back into work. Have fun for me.
Bye, Dad.
Bye.
Yeah.
Nice, sir.
Bye. Bye, Mr. Holden.
Goodbye, Susan Madams.
He left the room with a wink and flare, despite disappearing into the employees' only area of the shop. When Mr. Holden was out of sight, Kira silently strode over to the counter and carefully placed the $50 bill there. She turned back around and made a large smile at you and the others.
Come on, gang. Let's see if this town has a mall.
Yeah!
Unable to contain her excitement, Lee actually jumped with joy, while Cove and Derek just grinned. There wasn't a mall in your hometown, but Mr. Holden's store wasn't in Sunsetsburg, but it might be possible to find a mall out here. He felt pumped.
Heck yeah.
Let's go. She quickly herded the group out of the store area to the car.
Cove.
As the driver, I get to choose my partner in crime. Naturally, I bestow the position of shotgun to my baby.
Her command had both Derek and Lee snickering. Cove was for sure embarrassed over the phrasing and blatant favorism, but he took the seat by his mom without complaint. You were fine with that. You got the shotgun in your own car lot. It made sense that you got priority here.
I'll take the middles.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want a windows. You two can have them.
Are you cool with that?
You thought it was odd that anyone would give him a window seat, but you knew Derek tried to be especially polite when he was a guest. You nodded.
Fantastic.
Good. Sounds like we're all in agreement.
Everyone squeezed into the car, buckling in, and Kyra turned the radio on. She set it to a top 40s pop station. You were into it. Quickly, you recognized the song playing. It was a new one by an artist you were listening to a lot recently. It wasn't long until your group realized that they were lost, but after driving in enough circles, Kira's struggle paid off when she found a local mall. There were more cheers from Lee as Kyra pulled up into the parking lot. Once your group had made it inside, the first order of business on the trip was checking what this mall actually had.
Where should we go? Ooh, I think I see a makeup store ahead.
She rolled up on her tiptoes to get a better view. Meanwhile, Derek was eyeing the directory.
There's a chocolate shop? Seriously? We have to go there.
Yes, and wait. We need to find a decent jewelry shop. I need new hair ties and barrettes.
Nice.
We've also gotta at least look for the game store. There's tons of things you can't get anywhere but a store that's just for video games. Like GameStop. That'll last.
Hey, what are you thinking, Cove?
I want to look at the fish in the pets.
You could have guessed that much. Anywhere else? He smiled with some bashfulness.
The food.
So,
What about you, Susan?
Video game store, clothing, accessory, chocolate, pet, food court, art supplies, bookstore. That's all. That certainly is a list. Good thing we have all afternoon. Yeah. I have my own chops I want to make. Let's all agree to regroup here at 7 p.m.
What?
You're not coming with us?
All in the same building. I won't be alone as you think. I'll only be a few minutes away at most. You're old enough to enjoy them all without me hovering.
Okay.
Yep, just a sec. Am I getting DM'd?
Yep.
Thought I was. Something in my inventory that hasn't pinged. Weird.
I also love how they literally have a store here called America. Just
Oh,
okay.
Oh, it was a you who DM'd me. Oh, oh, that's cute. I saw that you DM'd me. That's cute.
Wait, what did I DM you?
The Patamon with the Lotmon.
Oh, that was in the. Okay, yeah, the main chat we were in. Yeah.
He also DM'd it to me in our chat.
Yeah, well, it's Vanya.
See you soon.
Be back here at 7 p.m. Toodaloo! Leaving Derek and Lee stunned by their newfound freedom, Kira walked off while she was almost out of sight. Derek's face twisted in confusion.
Wow, she's really gone. I can't believe she did just that.
Woo! It's so cool! We get to do whatever we want! You better happy about it. It is really exciting. With the decision already made, Derek tried to pull together his earlier enthusiasm from the trip.
So,
So, where are we going first? Time's wasting. Whatever's closest.
Things were coming together, but you realize there might be a flaw in today's sudden plans.
Huh? What's wrong, Susan?
Did everybody bring money with them?
yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
I did. I always have some on me when I come all the way out here.
You had money too. Immediately you felt better about the situation. It would have been a downer for not being able to think about something at the mall because they didn't have money. I'm good. Now that everything was squared away, you explored the mall together as a group. There were many shops you managed to venture into so far. You all even went into a video game store, leaving with Pep in your step. This was better than you thought, and there was still so much to see. After having hit many of the top priority stores, you found yourself passing by a small booth. It was decorated in wind chimes of various sizes. You raised a hand to one of the smaller ones. What sparked your attention next was Cove. Thought for sure he was going to stop at the booth by the way you looked at it, but he kept going. Do you want one? It wasn't until Lee asked that you realized you just stopped in front of the booth without saying anything. Lee just continued to encourage you. You should get one! You wanted one, but for someone else. They caught your attention, though it was because it might make a nice gift. Wondered if Lee was planning on becoming a wind chime salesperson. She just kept pushing it. I have one like this at home, and it makes the prettiest sound. Fishing your money out, you made a decision on what to buy. You got one for yourself, and one for Cove. Can I get these two, please? Now, why would you need two wind chimes? You rolled your eyes at her teasing tone, but you couldn't hide the smile growing on your own face as Lee broke out into laughter. The shopkeeper carefully wrapped up your purchase and handed it back to you in your bag. You accepted it, then raced off with Lee to catch up to the boys. For Cove, you picked out a beautiful wind chime that had a dolphin charm. You had a feeling he'd appreciate that. After leaving another clothing store, one that Lee couldn't resist exploring, you and your friends found yourself walking down the main hall of the mall again. It wasn't long until everyone you were with had their eyes on the smoothie kiosk ahead.
Oh, should we stop?
Yeah.
As you approached, your eyes was drawn to the dizzying list of smoothie combinations.
part of you wonder how long it would take to try them all. You can voice this one.
Okay.
Hi there. Do you need the rundown of how this works?
Yes, please.
Okay, first up, you pick up to 3 options of fruit or berry. Then, I'll add the ice and the store's special smoothies-based mix. And then, you'll have your very own smoothie for $4. There's only one size.
Cole leaned over the counter for a bit. For several moments, he instantly studied the plentiful fruits and berries option.
I want to get a strawberry banana smoothie with coconut too.
Sounds good. Is anyone else getting something?
Can I get one that's just all mango?
Of course.
Thanks. I like strawberries, blueberries, and raspberries for mine, thanks.
The shopkeeper looked at you now. He wanted one.
Could I get... Can I get a pineapple, mango... peach?
And that's everything. And with that, everyone went ahead and paid for their individual drinks. You waited over at the other side of the booth where the drinks are being... You waited over at the other side of the booth where the drinks were put when they were done. Derek bounced on his feet, excited for his to be ready.
Aww.
This is gonna be good.
Lee chimed in with her own enthusiasm.
Everybody said their smoothie-based stuff can make any drinks great.
Cole, while quieter, looked just as eager for his smoothie. Luckily, there hadn't been anyone else before you, so it wasn't a long wait. The group collected the fresh drinks as they were placed on the counter. Straws were placed through the opening at the top of the cups, and the first tentative sips were had. Derek sighed in satisfaction after his taste.
Mango is too delicious.
Mine's super good too.
Cole nodded and hummed in agreement. His straw was still in his mouth. You're really happy with yours.
This is perfect. Cool, we all made excellent choices today.
Yeah.
You asked if you could try Cole's smoothie.
Cole, can I have a drink of yours?
At this, Cole accidentally inhaled as he was drinking. His face was burning red from the embarrassment and from the coughing that shook him.
Dude, are you okay?
Derek gave Cove a few pats on the back. His hacking was only starting to slow.
I bet I end up going the wrong way. Sucks when that happens. True.
Lee elbowed you teasingly. The moment she got your attention, she started laughing and gesturing between you and Cove. Moments later, Cove was finally able to breathe normally. He wiped his mouth with his free hand. His gaze locked onto the floor as he nervously started chewing on his straw. You could tell he was torn. He didn't seem to want to say no, but he couldn't bring himself to say yes either. Derek couldn't watch this scene anymore. Drinking his own smoothie, he pretended to be fascinated by the displays in the store your group was passing by. Lee hadn't stopped looking over the two of you. You could tell she was living for every bit of this situation. Cove's unhappy stare went from Lee to Derek, almost shyly sipping his smoothie. You wonder if he was trying to will them to intervene. Feeling his stare, Derek peeked back towards Cove. The only response he offered was an understanding sigh. You teased him.
Did I do something wrong, Cove?
You pretended to be shocked as you looked from Lee to Derek, sizzling laughter from both of them. Cove put down his straw and shook his head. With a defeated sigh, Cove delicately moved the hand holding his drink towards you. He invited you to proceed with his eyes. Leaning in, you took a sip. It was an especially sweet combination.
Thanks.
He nodded and brought his smoothie back closer to his body, but he didn't start drinking again.
You're welcome.
You were satisfied. As your group continued to wander the mall, you came to an area in the path that was wider. In the center of the opening was a collection of quarter-operated ride-on machines. Derek stopped as soon as he saw them, smiling ear to ear.
I want to ride.
I think we might be too big.
No way!
No way. We're not that old yet.
He eagerly headed over to the machines, wanting to get a better look. Lee went along with it, smiling.
You're part of the problem, Lee.
He wanted to ride too. You quickly chased after Derek. He turned his head over to the back of the sound of your footsteps and gave a thumbs up over his shoulder. Reconvening around Derek, he watched as he focused on the various brightly colored rides. Most of them were designed to look like real vehicles, but there was also some horse-shaped ones. One of them could even seat 2 people. Lee leaned in closer and whispered playfully while pointing at the soul machine made for a pair. You should ride that one with Cove! We agreed. That might be fun.
I call the helicopter.
Why?
Cool.
It's the coolest, and I think it'll move the most.
He started digging in his pockets, pulling out whatever money he had left.
Ah, wait.
Is everything okay?
I need 4 quarters, right?
Yeah.
I only have 2.
There has to be more between all of us. Hold on.
Pockets, wallets, and purses were checked over. Derek still had 2. Cove had only 1, and Lee ended up with the most at 3. And you didn't have any.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you can have mine.
Thanks, but you don't have to. It's not enough for me. And even if it was, it'd be dumb to ride while you had to watch.
Cove shrugged. He had tried, failed, and looked unsure of what to do next.
Couldn't we exchange dollar bills for more quarters at a store?
Derek slapped a hand to his cheek, eyes wide.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that'll work. Let's do it.
The group scattered to various shops around. When they were reconvened at the rides, everyone had more than enough quarters. There was no wiping the smile off your face, despite the little hiccup intentionally. The plan to hitch a ride was coming together.
Get this over with. You have the coins.
Okay.
Cheer up, man. It's gonna be good.
Yay!
There were enough machines that everyone claimed for themselves. Derek got the coveted helicopter. Lee was happily on a horse. Cope waited to choose last. It seems he didn't want to take a ride someone else wanted when he cared so little about it. You picked the double-seater car, and you brought Cove along.
Cove, you can sit with me.
He gave a bent smile and put a hand on his hip when he saw the ride you pointed out.
I don't know.
Do you really want to try fitting me in that? You might actually be comfortable if you use it by yourself.
That doesn't matter. I want to ride it with you.
Alright.
Lee winked the two of you from her pony to switched next to one another on the child-sized seats. Looks were exchanged across the way and each popped the coins at the same time. The little ride shuddered to life. As machines began moving up and down and side to side, Lee and Derek couldn't contain their laughter. Derek was waving from the window of the helicopter, and Lee reached out to see if she could touch anyone at their machine and jolted closest to her. Cove, on the other hand, just gripped the side of the car. He was struggling to remain in his seat, looking very uncomfortable. Try to encourage Cove. It was terrible seeing how unhappy Cove was with this. He wondered if there was anything you could do to make him feel better.
Don't worry, we all look ridiculous on these things.
Cove's concentration was broken when he automatically looked in your direction. You thought you caught him rolling his eyes at your words.
Are you worried you're gonna fall off?
Cove shook his head, but you felt like you were going in the right direction.
I know people always talk about how tall you are, but you're not a giant. Some people are 7 feet tall.
Cove looked at you, clearly finding a smile, but his hands were still gripping his ride like his life depended on it.
Okay, if you do fall, I'll jump off and make this a bigger scene. I promise.
That thought finally broke him into a laugh, and a smile remained for the rest of the ride. Soon all the rides came to a stop, and the group dismounted. Derek looked absolutely pleased at the conclusion of this pit stop. Then you noticed something out of the corner of your eye. You tilted your head to look directly at it, and you burst into laughter.
What's funny?
You turned back to your group and nodded in the direction of where you were looking.
Isn't that one of those machines that takes dollars and gives quarters back?
That kind of thing exists for people who don't have quarters on hand? Everyone's heads more towards that way, and you saw you were right. Derek chuckled awkwardly.
That's exactly what that is.
Oh.
We're kinda dumb.
We have to be to miss that the whole time.
Come on, let's just put this behind us. There's still places open. We haven't been everywhere yet.
Totally. Here.
You moved along from one step towards your next, still jovial from the experience. Shortly into your walk, Lee ran over to a nearby trash can and tossed her smoothie cup. Derek went after her and threw his cup away. You followed soon and got ready your empty cup too. The clock inched closer to 7 p.m. as y'all made your way back to the directory. It's hard to believe how fast the day went by.
So,
Where do you think your mom ended up today? We didn't see her anywhere.
I don't know. She's just like that.
Ooh, it's a mystery.
Despite having vanished for the entire trip so far, when 7 p.m. hit, you spotted Kira coming right over, waving cheerily. As soon as she was close enough, she pinched Cove's cheeks.
Hey, yeah.
Hey, baby and friends.
Hi, Mom.
He pushed her hand back with one hand and rubbed his cheek with the other.
Did you have a good day, gang? Yeah.
It was awesome. We did so much.
Not bad.
It was fun.
You really enjoyed your day. There's no hiding your joy like the others. You were smiling ear to ear because the day went so much better than you expected.
I'm glad we came here.
That I do.
I want to hear all about it during the ride back.
She clapped her hands together once, making sure she had everyone's undivided attention.
Speaking of that, we better head out. Cliff must be missing us and you've got to be starving. It's dinner time and you hadn't eaten yet.
Yeah.
Everyone followed their lead and started walking out the door to the parking lot. Something about what Kira said felt off to you. There were tons of places to eat. It's a mall. You could have had dinner. You wonder if it was just a good guess, but you could feel your eyebrows raise when it dawned on you. She might have been keeping an eye on you after all. It was actually pretty... You weren't sure about that. It seemed kind of sketchy. Kind of hard to put a finger on exactly how to react. You never had a problem in the first place with her staying with you today. It felt pointless to you, but it wasn't something worth getting worked up over either. Shaking off those thoughts, you caught up with the others. Keeping the same seating arrangement as earlier, you all piled into the car and started heading back to the store. The drive went without any problems. It was filled with chatter about the various things everyone saw around the mall. Soon enough, you arrived at your destination. It was a much faster trip considering this time Kira knew where she was going. Hearing the light jingle of the bells in the front of the door being opened, Cliff poked his head up from the back. He lit up seeing who was here.
Hey, Sport, did everyone have an adventure?
Hi, Dad.
We had a blast.
Yes. He found the mall.
Aw.
The mall? Wish I could have joined.
He played in an exaggerated way. His shoulders sloped. Kira put a hand on his arm and smiled.
Any whoosies.
There'll be other times. Are you set here?
Just about. Almost.
Mr. Holden sighed for real. He then pulled himself together, standing up straight.
Do you mind?
I need just a little bit more time to finish up. Will you be alright killing time for a little longer?
It's okay.
Yes, sir.
No problem, Mr. Holden.
Sure.
We can have fun here.
Excellent! What a great group of kids.
He gave an approving thumbs up and Kyra nodded along.
I'll give you a hand. I remember the ropes.
Why, thank you.
They walked side by side to the back room. Before he was out of sight, Cliff stopped and looked over his shoulder.
If you leave the shop, don't go far. Getting late.
And then the parents were gone again.
Let's go to the docks. They're right down the way.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw those on the way here and really wanted to check it out. Are you coming, Susan? Alright.
With a smile, Cove showed the way.
They do know the way.
Between the warm summer air and the smell of the ocean, you couldn't ask for a better night.
Thanks. Thanks for letting me come. Me too.
Right?
Right? I'm happy we did this. Today was great.
Oh, but your mom and dad are really cool.
Really?
Totally.
Cove looked at Lee oddly. He ran a hand through his hair and then his puzzled expression cracked with a chuckle.
I guess.
Sometimes they are.
You continued walking. Every so often you would look up at the sky and see several stars poking out between the clouds. At one point you noticed that Cove stopped while Lee and Derek also kept going on ahead, busily chatting. Initially you wondered if something was wrong, but you quickly know that he still looked to be in good spirits. You decided to hang back with Cove. He gave you a quick acknowledging look when you stopped at his side. You could taste the sea salt as you took a deep breath of ocean air. Silently, you and Cove watched the ocean for a little while. There wasn't something about the waves that you always found soothing. You couldn't think of a better way to end a busy day. And then it hit you, the wind chime. This was the perfect moment. Quickly, you took the wrapped package out of your bag.
Hey, Cove?
He barely replies. His focus was mostly on lazily watching the sea. The paper wrapping crinkled as he pushed the package forward, trying to make him realize. He finally caught sight of it, and his eyebrows raised up high. Gingerly, Cove accepted the gift. Just seeing the present brought a smile to Cove's face. He carefully opened it, and his whole body brightened as he recognized the chime.
Oh my god.
He suggested the time simply made you think of him.
I thought it suited you, so I got it.
Really?
Cove's smile seemed to grow even bigger, and his blush deepened. He looked sincerely happy.
You're just...
He wasn't able to find the right words to finish his thought. Then Cove started getting shy over his bashfulness and put a hand over his mouth. You're so happy that buying the wind chime was the right call.
Susan.
I'll take such good care of it, Susan. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me know when you end up putting it up. It'd be helpful to know.
You took your wrapped up wind chime out of your bag and held it up, drawing a chuckle from him.
Okay, we'll match that way.
Yeah.
Not much later, Derek's chipper voice caught your attention. You and Cove both turned your gaze down the pier.
What are you doing there, Slowpoke? Get over here.
Hey, come on!
You looked at Cove at the same time he looked at you. You grinned and nodded your head in the direction of your friends. He gave you a small smile in return. Your footsteps echoed against the wooden planks of the dock into the night as you ran to catch up.
Yeet.
Let's see. Alright, we're doing okay. Yep. I think we'll do one more and then we'll stop there, okay? Sound good?
Sounds good.
Birthday!
That would take us to 4 anyways, so.
Yeah. And then once we get the 3 done, then we can then move into the like epilogue of that part.
Yep.
It was a pleasant afternoon. The sun shone brightly and the breeze tugged lightly at the balloons strung around the park. You and Cove had just been dropped off at Miranda Eckert's birthday party. You didn't really know Miranda. Last year was the first time you had a class with her, and everyone at school knew her as quiet. The shy girl stuck to her own friend group like glue. It had been a surprise that she was having such a big party. You looked around the expansive park, a spacious recreation center in the next town over, and noticed a bouncy castle. Miranda had been a reputation for not caring if she acted mature like other teens sometimes did. It made a certain amount of sense that her parents would match that. You thought Miranda was sweet. You had always gotten the vibe that she was nice, and inviting you to her party proved it. You liked that she wasn't obsessed with proving she was grown up. Maybe hanging out today would be fun. You hadn't had a choice in coming here today. Your moms insisted on after you got the invitation, as did Cove's mom and dad. So both you and he were driven over to the next town with presents in tow. All the parents have been pretty firm about going to a birthday if you ever been invited. You were happy to be here. You couldn't wait for the party to get started. There were so many things at the birthday parties, and you were glad Miranda had wanted you to come. Cove made a small noise which caught your attention. He looked around, scanning the area. He fidgeted with his gift in hand.
So...
Oh, hey guys, here I go. Any idea what we're supposed to do with these?
You looked at your own present, then towards the seating area. There was a table filled with snacks and drinks, supplies for various party games. Past a thought, you spotted one table in the back that seemed to have a truckload of gifts. He pointed it out to Cove.
Let's drop the presents off over there.
Cove nodded with a smile and turned towards where you gestured. He saw it too.
Cool.
You and Cole began to walk over to the present table, flattening the well-trimmed grass beneath your feet. You walked past the groups of people. Classmates in semicircles, broken up into the unusual friend groups, chatted away. You or maybe Cole received the occasional greeting or friendly nod. However, as you passed by even more people that you had not even seen before, you became aware there were more strangers here than not. It was more crowded than you expected. Miranda Eckert, the quiet girl, was hosting the most populated birthday party you had ever gone to in a long time. You looked at the new faces and thought maybe you saw some of Miranda in them. Cousins, nieces, or nephews, maybe? Parties could be a big deal in her family. The both of you reached the table. You set your gift down in an empty space, brushing some confetti aside, and Cole placed his gently next to it. He looked at the present thoughtfully.
Hey.
Hey, what'd you get her?
Before he had a chance to answer, Cove opened his mouth again and tapped his gift.
Found this sparkly bag. I figured she could use it for school or trip.
Your mom said taking you out shopping the other day. You searched through the store and ultimately you picked out a stuffed animal. The white eyes of the otter plush had called to you. You weren't sure what in its face made you think of Miranda, but it seems appropriate. Your mom had agreed that it was a fine present, and Ma helped you wrap it. You described it to Cove briefly, and he had no objections.
Not bad.
Not a bad idea.
He brushed his hands against the sides of his pants.
I really hope Miranda likes it. But I think we both did good.
With that, he gave you a sunny grin. You touched the gift one more time and then stepped away. Without the direction of needing to put stuff away, the two of you weren't sure what to do next. You felt a little awkward, and Cove shrunk it on himself as he looked around. There were more gifts hanging to the present table, so he turned away and wandered over to a nearby tree where he wouldn't be in the way. From there, you both inspected the area and planned the next step. You were glad that Cove had been invited too. At least you had his company in this unfamiliar place. You watched him, and he gave you a nervous grin. It reassured you a little, and you smiled back.
What next?
Cove did not appreciate being put on the spot. He was just as unsure as you were.
Birthday party stuff? Also, I think we have someone in the chat that joined.
Hey, Patchy.
Hey, Patchy. Good to see you. It didn't seem time for cake, with people still arriving. Nothing else seemed to be organized yet either. He noticed that himself and tried again.
We could find Miranda?
That was an idea. It made sense to greet the birthday girl.
Okay, we could say hello.
Wish her happy birthday.
Ask her what she wants people to do.
Sounds good.
With that point, it was decided. The Miranda hunt began. You wandered around. Anytime you saw someone with Miranda's hair color, you got a little closer, but more than once it turned out to not actually be her.
Hey, look!
Finally, you pointed over to the real Miranda. She smiled slightly when you both approached, but ducked her head. She seemed a little overwhelmed with being the center of attention today.
Hi, Cole. Hi, Susan.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. I'm really glad you could come.
You all stood awkwardly. Miranda seemed genuinely happy, but there was still a distance between you.
This is a great looking party.
Thank you.
Is there something we need to do, or should we just hang out?
Oh, well, you can talk to people if you want. There are games that are gonna start soon.
And the bounce house should be open later, if you feel like jumping. Then after that, it's cake and present time. We'll have ice cream too. After that, some people will start going home. I hope that's okay with you guys.
Cove nodded. He seemed a little more confident about the situation now.
Thanks for letting us know.
You grinned at her and she nodded back. Miranda waited there and you became hyper-aware of the silence forming. You heard a shout of a Randy and Miranda brightened up, a total 180 for how stiff she had been with you.
I gotta talk to some more people. Bye!
The birthday girl ran off to her friend, leaving you and Cove with at least a little more of an idea of what to expect. You both glanced at each other wordlessly. All that was left now was finding something to fill time until the activities began. You just talked with Cove. You started talking about how you felt about this kind of birthday party and what you wanted to do for your next party. Cove made the occasional suggestion. Your conversation became silly as you started joking about ridiculous party ideas. Cole wanted a moon party, and he wondered if anyone ever tried to make a cake big enough to be the party location. Suddenly, a loud voice boomed over the crowd. The constant buzz of conversation dropped as one of the adults, maybe Miranda's dad, asked the kids to gather around because it was game time.
Huh.
I wonder what's gonna happen.
You scanned the area to make a guess. You saw a picture of a donkey hung on a tree, a table with lots of candy, and even more balloons.
I guess we could be playing pin the tail on the donkey.
I doubt it.
And what do you think it's about?
He pointed to the poster of the tailless donkey. He shook his head.
I've never seen anybody play that in real life.
The adults announced that the children under 10 had the first turn on the bouncy house. For everyone else, it was time to play pin the tail on the donkey. You had called it. Cove raised his eyebrows. He was surprised for sure. He thought it was kind of silly. It was such a kid's game. The fact that theirs was planned for a party full of teens was a little crazy. You reluctantly joined in the line since that was what you were supposed to do, and you didn't feel like arguing. The donkey in question was a cartoony poster with big eyes that looked a little more like ping pong balls. It was positioned a few feet above the ground on a tree trunk. The teen who arrived first was blindfolded and spun around. He was nudged to the side and away from the other kids so he wouldn't stick someone with the tail instead. Unfortunately for him, he placed the donkey's tail on the head like some kind of bizarre earring. He wouldn't be winning that far from the target. His next opponent did far better by landing on the donkey's back. The spectators clapped politely and then the line moved up. More teams tried their hand on it. Some got closer than others, but no one had gotten it perfect yet. Soon it was Cove's turn. He was blindfolded and spun around just like the others. At this point, it was a close match and everyone was watching with bated breath. Cove approached the donkey and stuck the tail on it without hesitation. Cove stood back and removed his blindfold, cheering out when he saw how close he was. He turned his head over his shoulders and grinned at you.
Your turn.
You took your turn. With the blindfold on, the bright part became utterly dark. As you were spun around, the sounds around you seemed to get louder. At least you could tell the direction of the bounce house from the shrieks of the younger children. You stopped spinning and stepped forward, and the tail in hand, it was time to give it a stab. Place it to the left. You pressed the tail at the target and stepped back. You took your blindfold off to check your results. There was some more clapping from the audience. The tail wasn't too far off, but there were more particularly enthusiastic oohs, and a few people mentioned how close you got. You smiled and looked back at Cove. He seemed amused. His tail wasn't off by much either, and you couldn't tell which one of you was winning. They were just too nearby each other. A few more kids took their turn. One girl managed to somehow pin the tail on the opposite side of the tree. You're pretty sure it had to be on purpose. With the line empty, the game was finally over. The adults running things started to expect the donkey. At this point in time, the sign was more tails than donkeys. In the end, Cove was announced the winner with lots of smiles and applause. He grinned and seemed pretty proud of himself. He was handed a fistful of candy from the man in charge. Cove needed both hands to accept it all.
Thanks.
He tucked the candy into his pocket. It filled more than one. You congratulated Cove.
You did really good.
Thanks. I feel kind of sorry for the donkey, though.
You both looked at the multi-tailed monstrosity and winced as you pictured how that would look on a real-life creature. He asked to be willing to share the prize. Some of the trees looked really good, and surely if he hadn't downsized his prize, it was just gonna fall out of his pocket anyway.
Can I have some of the candy?
He shoved his hand in his pocket and pulled some of his candy back out.
Sure. It's not like I can eat it all anyway.
You smiled and chose a few of your favorites. You made sure to leave Cove the candies you knew he'd like best. An older teen walked up, tall enough to tower over you and Cove. You felt a little intimidated by this stern-faced teenager until she started to speak. Her voice was a little bit friendlier than the tough frown would guess.
Hi, I'm handing out party favors. You want one?
She showed you the party hats. She insisted they were the key to a true party mood. She had two options, either a colorful headband with two tiny party hats arranged almost like ears, or a tiara with stars on it. They were both very festive.
It's okay.
No thanks.
You knew the teen hadn't actually glared at him. Her default facial expression just seemed grim. You picked a crown. You pointed to the crown and the teenager passed it over to you with the solemnness of crowning a monarch. Then you encouraged Code to pick one. He held a pink headband hat in one hand with the crown in the other. You try to imagine what they looked like on Cove.
You really should try it. It'd be great.
Cove looked back at the hats and then at you. With a sigh, he grabbed a hold of one. The teen with the hands clapped as much as she could with all the hats in her hands. The unknown teenager nodded approvingly at you both and went to pass out more hats to people. You put the party hat on your head with a smile and it fitted well. It was surprisingly comfortable.
It really completes your look. When did you get so fashionable?
He smirked, and you just adjusted your new accessory.
Does look very good on me. Thanks.
You looked him straight in the eye and seemed unsure how to handle that reaction to his statement. He pondered for a second until he came up with a response.
You don't have to brag.
He struck a pose and he rolled his eyes. Look how cute. Cole finally put his own hat on. He was nervous about it, his face uncertain.
That's,
I don't know about this. I feel kind of silly. Does it look weird?
You look great, Cove.
Oh, thanks.
He readjusted his hat bashfully. After that, the people in charge quickly set up the next game. Teenagers mouthed about until they were told to find partners. You try to listen to the rules, straining to your ears to listen to the adults announcing what you were supposed to do. It was a simple game. One person in the pair would throw candy while the other had to catch it in their mouth. If they caught it, the pair would move on to the next round, where everyone would take steps back and the former catcher would become the thrower. The game would continue, the players getting further and further until one set of partners was the only one left standing, or everyone lost in a round. About half of the guesses have already found partners. They moved fast. You noticed Cove had his eyes on you.
Could we be partners?
Neither of you were all that familiar with anyone else here. It'd be the safe choice to pair up. You agreed to be Cove's partner.
Let's do it, partner.
Cool.
Immediately started wondering about your respective candy catching capabilities. Two rows of players facing each other formed. Cove tilted his head towards them and he started to head over. You both lined up directly in front of each other. It took a while to pass out the candy. Your hand is a small bag of gummies that smelled strongly fruity. You notice Cove took it upon himself to do a taste test of a red one across from you.
Not bad.
You try one for yourself. You end up grabbing a purple gummy. It was sweet and you guessed it was supposed to be grape flavor, but it was mostly just really sugary. And then it was time to begin. Cove's row was the first set to throw first. He smiled nervously, his eyes wide with seriousness. You grinned and Cove's smile looked more genuine and less filled with tenseness. The game was on. The adults in charge shouted from the throwers to go. You and Cove were only a couple feet away from each other, but Cove carefully tossed you the candy. With Cove's careful toss, you caught the candy easily. Like you, most of the other players moved on to the next round. There were a few gaps in the rows as everyone took a step back. The round was harder with pairs further apart, but overly not so. It could be done if both partners tried. You did your best as you tossed it. Carefully plucked a gummy from the bag and felt the weight. You shifted it in your hand a couple times for practice, then told Cove you were ready. You went for an underhand throw and careful to aim it for Cove's mouth. The blue candy arched and landed perfectly in Cove's mouth. He chewed it twice and then smiled widely. You could tell Cove was genuinely pleased to make it through another round. You were happy as well. The next round began, you took another step back. Cove was even further away now, but he made an OK sign. He was in this to win this. Around you, the once packed rows of players had thinned out some. You wondered how many rounds everyone had left in them. Cove swung his arm and made eye contact with you. You nodded and the green candy flew towards you. You tried your best to catch it. You followed the arc of the candy and opened your mouth wide. At a slight spin on it, you tilted your head to the left to compensate. You bit down the candy, gripping with such vigorous catch. It tasted sweet and vaguely like a Slurpee.
Yeah, Susan!
Cove was thrilled. He was entirely invested in the game at this point. You and Cove were still in the game. You knew this was the final round. Only a few other pairs were still left. Cove was determined to win. You could see in his clench of his jaw the careful way he watched you. You equally wanted to win. You made it this far. It was time to go all the way. You looked around at your remaining competitors and prepared yourself. Cole gave a firm grip and firm grin and you prepared to throw. Your finger grabbed an orange gummy from the bag. It felt solid in your grasp, even if your hand was starting to get sticky from touching all the sugary sweets. Cole leaned forward, his face towards you, and bent his knees ready to catch. The time came. You took the candy and then you looked at the candy and then Cove. You tried your best. Candy flew like a missile straight towards him. Cove almost stumbled to the floor trying to get it, but your aim was perfect. He got it into his mouth. A wide grin spread across his face as Cole victoriously chomped down on the candy.
Yes!
Along with his cheer, he jumped in excitement and pumped one arm. You look to your left and then to your right. You see the few remaining pairings walk away commiserating over their losses. With some shock, you realize that you and Cove were the only ones who made it that round. You won! You watched the moment Cove clicked in the same realization. His face brightened like sunshine and jogged over to you to close the distance between you. You stepped closer to meet him halfway. Hug! His eyes went big when he realized you were going in for a hug. He smiled and caught you, hugging you back tightly. You won this together. He immediately stomped his feet in place in front of you as though he couldn't contain his energy.
Precious. You did it.
He adjusted the hat that had nearly fallen off through the event. Woo! The game marshaled over to you and merely gave you both a bunch more candy on top of letting you keep the gummy bags. It was quite the collection. Cole laughed over just how much candy you both had acquired. Between this game and the pin, the tail, and the donkey, you were swimming in sugar now. With the candy toss over, you were going to need something else to do. You didn't have to wait long. You heard someone in the crowd shouting the bounce house was officially open for the older kids. You and Cove shared a look. Cove smiled and you knew what he wanted in. You both ran over to the bouncy castle and kicked off your shoes. You crawled into the inflated castle with Cove hot on your heels. There was a couple other teens inside already. You started to get a feel for bouncing. Cove hopped from the middle to the side and back just after you landed from a particularly high jump. Someone else snuck in. It was the birthday girl herself.
Hey, Miranda.
Hi, birthday girl. Miranda looked happy. She waved both hands at you and with a megawatt grin.
I hope you're having fun.
She hopped around with her hands in front of her like a kangaroo. It was a surprisingly effective way to clear distance in the bounce house. She then jumped high, kicking both her legs out to the side and touched the tips of her toes with her fingers.
Wow.
Miranda hadn't run out of tricks yet. She jumped a couple more times, gaining height before doing a backflip and tucking into a ball. She managed to land on her feet, but didn't stick the landing. She tumbled back and fell on her butt. Cove clapped and Miranda inclined her head, almost like a bow. She was back to jumping in no time.
You're so good at this.
She bounced close enough to the two of you to talk without shouting across the way. Cove bounced slower to accommodate their conversation.
My family gets these every year. And we have a trampoline in the backyard.
You're so lucky, Miranda. Miranda giggled a bit and her eyes sparkled.
Hey, I can launch someone if you want. I'll jump in front of you, then your bounce will go higher.
Okay, launch me.
Sure.
Miranda leaped over to you, her excitement clear on her face. Cove watched with interest. She explained more clearly how this was supposed to work. You got ready to bounce on her cue.
3, 2, 1.
Once she came down, you jumped high. The force of her, just as she said, helped launch you up. The air rushed past your face, and then you were coming back down. Your feet hit the bounce house hard enough to help launch Miranda up a little as well. She giggled some more as the two of you took turns bouncing each other up. Cove clapped or offered suggestions, but it was becoming clear that he wanted to turn too. Miranda invited him to join and tried synchronizing your bounces to launch Cove up super high. The first time resulted in everyone crashing down to a pile of laughs. By the fifth attempt, Cove managed to catch some serious airtime. You all had fun bouncing around. You twirled, Miranda did stunts. Cove fully tried to touch the highest tip of the castle ceiling. You and Cove chatted to Miranda more than you ever had at school. She was truly the queen of this bouncy castle. Whenever someone did something cool, everyone would cheer. If you fell, the others would help you up. Eventually, more people wanted to take turns in the bounce house, so you and Cove left. As you slipped on your shoes, you saw Miranda getting drawn into conversation with a group of adults. She would be talking to them for a while. You and Cove decided to take a break and hydrate. You went to the party table and grabbed some ice water. Cove handed you a party noisemaker he picked up from the same table. He blew on it and made a funny sound when it unrolled. Cove downed his drink in a couple of gulps. He got pretty into bouncing after all. You were still sipping your water again when Cove blew on his noisemaker again. Then again, and again. It was almost a tune. You didn't recognize the peculiar melody, but a noisemaker also isn't an instrument. The noise cut through the hum of the other party gets loud and noticeable. Started blowing on your... you blew your own noisemaker back at Cove. You blew hard enough to unfurl the paper completely straight. It jutted towards Cove, almost tapping his chin. Cove wasn't going to let you stand that. He retaliated and blew back at you. It nearly touched your nose. It was a game now, but you both tried to land a light hit on the other. Cove managed to get your chin while you scored it right in between his eyes.
Oh, great. You people again.
Huh? Someone vaguely familiar shouted, and you snapped your head to the side. Cove's noisemaker dropped from his mouth. The speaker stepped up, and there was no doubt it was Jeremy, that mean boy you met at the start of the summer. You felt very uncomfortable and didn't know what to do. You shrunk in on yourself and looked away again.
Why are you here?
Cove's tone was defensive. You watched Jeremy's face turn slack as if Cove's question was the idiocy above all idiocies.
Didn't I already explain this?
He had, and so both you and Cove exchanged a look.
Do you have memory loss, or are you really that stupid? Seriously.
I didn't walk here.
My parents brought me. Apparently, I couldn't just stay inside like I wanted. No, they insisted that I get out and enjoy the day and have fun on vacation. Blah blah blah, stupid woke.
You said enjoy the day and have fun on vacation like some people would say. Scrub the entire bathroom or listen to an off-key singer for 10 hours.
I found a park 'cause I hate the beach. Too bad I also hate parks. Ugh, it's dirty here. They don't know anything. Oh, and then they saw this stupid party and decided to bother some adults by asking what was going on. They think maybe we could be included. It's moronic. Get it now? It's how my parents are. Annoying and embarrassing. Why would anybody want strangers at their birthday? Why can't they ever just leave things alone?
He huffed loud and he shot daggers at some grown-ups that presumably were his parents. He didn't bother trying to respond to that mess of a rant. This was not your problem, and you wanted to keep it that way. Jeremy's eye slipped away from you to take in the rest of the park for a little. It was a little awkward. It was possible he didn't know what to do, but then he spoke again.
So dumb.
How can people really go around in those embarrassing party heads? Do they think it's fun or something? How could a human being be so dumb?
It's just kind of nice to do party stuff. Jeremy scoffed, unimpressed. The expression on his face was as nasty as he spoke.
I'm not surprised an empty-headed person like you would think that.
Jeremy looked over to you, completely dismissive. It's so rude he couldn't help but feel offended. Cove's face hardened. He seemed more offended than when anyone actually insulted him personally.
Hey!
Just because you don't know how to be happy doesn't mean no one else does. And it's not our fault if you hate everything. It's not okay for you to take it out on Susan. She isn't doing anything wrong. You are.
Jeremy seemed unfazed by Cove's defense and sniffled.
Susan can humiliate herself on her own. She doesn't need you to step in and do it for her.
You teared up. Tears started to moisten your cheeks. Jeremy showed no signs of remorse. He just grimaced.
How are you gonna live in the real world if this is too much?
You said nothing. People were starting to watch what was going down. Your argument wasn't exactly quiet at this point.
Why don't you just leave us alone if we're so awful?
Jeremy glared even more and huffed.
Dumbasses.
Talking to you is pointless. Dumbasses.
He stalked off like the last time you saw him, muttering under his breath. Cole sighed relief after Jeremy was gone. He relaxed, but only for a moment. He noticed how much attention you were drawing from the other guest. Luckily, it hadn't gone on long enough for you to get a real crowd. A concerned adult in a blue button-up shirt approached you and asked who that was and if everything was alright.
It's okay.
I'm okay. I'm fine.
Cole looked at you cautiously, asking just as much as the adult as if you were okay.
Everything is fine now. You don't have to worry about us.
The concerned adult lingered for a few seconds, but not just left you alone. The Jeremy fiasco was officially over. Cove rubbed his eyes, clearly ready to pull in all that nonsense behind him. Then he started laughing. It was a surprise laugh breaking out of his chest without any actual joy. It was nervous and disbelief after all the complex emotions brought about by one meeting with Jeremy.
I can't believe it.
He spoke in fits and starts.
How can Jeremy be like that? He shouted at us. He barely knows us. He was at a birthday party for someone he's never met.
He felt sad. You were just happy Jeremy was gone.
Hopefully he stays away.
Cove seemed to think about his next words carefully before he spoke.
I don't think it matters what we do around him. Jeremy's just gonna yell no matter what. We shouldn't worry about it. Do you want to tell your moms about Jeremy, I mean? He always picks a fight. Maybe they'd know how to handle someone like him.
Thanks for asking.
I'll keep this between us, though.
But let's not. I don't think it'd help.
Alright.
Okay.
He apologized to Cove.
I'm sorry, Cove. It's my fault you're wearing the hat in the first place.
Cove shook his head. If anything, he seemed surprised at your apology.
Don't worry about it.
I don't mind that you did. It's been fun. This whole day has been fun. Except for Jeremy. And he's gone now.
He reached up and flicked his hat with pride, giving you a small grin. It made you happy. Finally bent over to pick up the noise bear that Cove dropped when Jeremy appeared. It might be too dirty to use now, but he didn't want to leave it there. He accepted it softly when he offered the little favor back to him.
Thanks, Susan. I like how we can be there. It makes me feel better about that kind of stuff when it happens.
Yeah,
Cove suggested you should find a seat at one of the tables. It was almost cake time and he wanted to be prepared. It was a good reminder that the party wasn't over yet.
There's a free table there. Let's get ready for some cake.
You and Cove tried to settle down after the last event. You took seats across from one of the park's tables. There were a few attempts to chat, but for most of the party, you simply watched the adults run around and set up the cake cutting. There was a minor panic when he assumed it was Miranda's dad apparently forgot the lighter for the candles. He and another man went through and started asking the other adults for matches or lighters. They weren't having any luck until a grim-faced teenager who had been passing out party hats pulled out a green lighter out of the ice cream cooler. But why the lighter was put in the cooler remained a mystery, but with party hats, girl find it was time to get things going again. Miranda sat at the end of the longest table. A large chocolate cake was set in front of her. She lit all 14 candles with the cooler lighter with a big smile. The adults started singing happy birthday and the rest of the guests joined in. At the end of the song, Miranda blew out the candles with a dedicated huff. She closed her eyes and you saw her silently mouthing something. Maybe it was a birthday wish. Miranda cut her own slice, then one of the grown-ups took over cutting the cake. Another adult passed around plates of cake slices with a scoop of vanilla ice cream to the guests. Eventually, the cake got around to you and Cove. Cove was pleased with the treat in general. The cake looked rich and moist. It smelled quite chocolatey. You wanted both cake and ice cream. You took a bite of the ice cream. The vanilla wasn't bad, it was a little bland. The chocolate cake, however, was a rich flavor. Cove then took his fork and started mashing up some of his cake. When the cake resembled a pile of crumbly chunks, he started mixing it into the ice cream. The melted parts of the ice cream made a kind of chocolatey cake soup. You told him you did the same thing.
I also like cake that way.
Oh, yeah, isn't it good? Though it's better with brownies.
As he shoved a bite of his ice cream cake in his mouth, he looked extremely validated. Cove contentedly chowed down on his concoction. What advantage to his mix that is the ice cream seemed to catch most of the crumbs that would usually fall from eating a cake. Unlike some of the other kids around him, Cove's shirt remained cleaned. Start eating your dessert in earnest. You enjoyed yourself plenty. Cove suddenly put his fork down on his plate and stared up to the sky with a faraway expression. He checked, but he didn't see anything attention-grabbing.
His ice cream is better than those ones in cups. You know, with the little wooden spoons. But I still kind of want that instead.
You remembered what he was talking about.
Oh yeah! Like the ones handed out at the barbecue before the fireworks happened.
Right.
Cove smiled nostalgically at the thought. You could picture a younger Cove for a moment with the same look in his eyes. You offered him a bite of your dessert.
Do you want any of mine?
Cove raised his eyebrow for half a second before the realization came. Laughter burst out of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that part too.
You told him you were serious.
Really, Cove, let's share.
He rubbed his neck, leaning back in his seat. He was taken aback and even more bashful.
Well, I already have some on my plate, so it's different. We were kids and, yeah, sorry.
Different now? In what way?
Susan.
He spoke with a teaser tone. You were teasing. You were testing him. Cove gulped as he looked at you and then your respective dessert plates. He took a quick breath and grabbed your fork. Without telling himself hesitate, he took a bite. He smiled.
Thanks, Cove.
Miranda then started to open her gifts. She systematically attacked the mountain of presents like a pro. She checked for any cards and read them out loudly before opening a gift. She smiled at every present, including the ones you and Cove got her. You were glad the presents were accepted. It took time, but eventually Miranda got through all the gifts. She was very sweet and polite throughout it all. The party went until the sun began to set, but by that point most everything had settled down and people had begun to leave. Any of the guests whose parents had stayed for the party were already gone except for Miranda's. Only a few kids who were still waiting for their parents to come and get them remained, you and Cove included. Miranda's family were cleaning up, and as guests, neither you nor Cove were supposed to help with that. Instead, the both of you decided to take it easy in the bouncy castle. It was somewhere out of the way where you could casually wait for your ride. Miranda had also elected to hang out with you. You weren't even bouncing anymore. Cove lay on his side with his back to a wall, and Miranda sat across from him with his legs stretched out. You also made yourself comfortable. It was nice and warm in the little building. It also felt like you had some privacy, which was nice. You all could speak openly here.
Thanks for coming.
She looked down but continued shyly.
It's been really cool to hang out with you a little bit.
Thanks for letting me come. I didn't think I'd be invited.
Thank you. Thanks for me too, Miranda. Miranda just smiled a little more.
So, did you notice anything happening earlier? With some people you don't know showing up?
She had to think about the question a little. It was apparently that she didn't have an encounter with Jeremy since there was no instant recognition. I heard about something. Some other parents were talking to my parents when their kid came and forced them to leave the park. She tilted her head from the side, finding it weird but also not important. Then everyone had cake and ice cream. Cove smiled uncomfortably.
That's good.
He was clearly worried that the Jeremy confrontation could have gotten to her. Luckily, it seemed that anyone who had overheard or passed along Jeremy's cruel words. Cove rolled onto his back and sighed contentedly. Miranda seemed confused but wasn't going to push. He laid back and closed her eyes to rest. The airfield floor was comfortable when you listened to feel the vibrations of the blower keeping the bounce house up. Silence stretched out between everyone. You opened your eyes to take a peek at the others. Cove was still relaxing, but Miranda was looking between you two, looking confused. You smiled to yourself and closed your eyes once more. You spent the rest of the time content and dozing until it was time to go home. At the end of the day, you thought it'd been quite the party. And there's that.
Okay.
I think we did pretty good today, huh?
Absolutely.
Alright. So, by then we'll have 3 more moments to do, and then we'll be at the epilogue of Step 2.
Yep.
Alright. Alrighty. Where should we go today? Oh! I know who we can raid! I know exactly who we can raid. I would normally raid someone like Zen or Haru, but since we already gave them some raids, let's surprise somebody. Especially a little cat boy. Let's do it.
Alright.
Guys, come on and say hi to Tommy. He's a precious little bean. Absolutely adore him. After I do raid though, I'm probably gonna see Zen a bit, because he's actually celebrating 1 year of hitting partner on Twitch, so I'm gonna go congratulate him on that as well, so. If you guys are interested, there's your raid messages. Please do give Tommy a follow. He's a precious cat boy. He's actually playing Stray right now, which has been pretty popular, so, yeah. So, until next time guys, I'm Susan, and from my boyfriend and I, thanks for watching! Bye!
Take care.